I walked into a hotel room to catch my husband cheating. I did. His mistress was still in the bed. You weren't supposed to find out like this. But before he could explain, she stood up, looked me in the eye, and said, "Your husband told me you were dead." 6 years ago, I married Andrew Lawson at 31 in a backyard in front of 40 people who all said we made sense. For most of it, they were right. He remembered how I took my coffee without asking. I kept his side of the closet organized without being asked either. We had a house in a good school district neither of us needed yet, 2 cars paid off, and a Friday habit of ordering the same Thai food and splitting the spring rolls. We weren't the kind of married that needed grand gestures. We were the kind that just worked. Then, this spring, the Fridays stopped. His phone started living face down, on the counter, on the nightstand, in his coat pocket, where I couldn't see the screen light up. He worked later, then later than that. Then he started taking calls out in the garage with the door shut. I told myself it was his job. Everyone's husband gets quiet sometimes. I found a receipt for a haircut in his coat pocket once. I told myself it was overdue anyway. I didn't scream. I refilled his coffee and let it go. 2 nights in Denver, he said, already zipping his bag. Regional sales conference. Same hotel as always. He said regional sales conference, the exact same way every single time, like he'd practiced it in the car. He kissed the side of my head on his way out, the way you kiss a coworker's cheek at a holiday party. I stood in the doorway and watched his taillights go. I looked up the conference before his car even cleared the block. There was no regional sales conference in Denver that week. There was a hotel 40 minutes from our own house, though. A reservation for 2, under his name. Room 214, confirmed for tonight. I didn't call him. I got my keys, and I followed the address instead. I told the front desk I'd locked myself out of my husband's room, room 214. The clerk didn't ask a single follow-up question. He just cut me a key. Room 214 was on the 2nd floor, at the end of a hallway with a broken ice machine humming outside it. I've thought about that a lot since, how easy it is to walk into somebody's hidden life once you already know the number. I didn't knock. I used the key the front desk gave me when I said I was his wife. The door swung open on its own weight. He was standing by the bed, shirt half open, and for 1 second, neither of us said a single word. The room smelled like somebody else's perfume, not his cologne. And what she said next unraveled a lie years in the making. Hit like and subscribe so you don't miss the ending, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Behind him, a woman I had never seen before was sitting up against the headboard, like she'd been expecting company, not caught by it. You weren't supposed to find out like this, he said again, like repeating it would help. I looked past him, at her. Who are you? How long? I said next. Not even a full sentence. It was the only question I had ready. Neither of them answered that one either. She reached over, picked her sweater up off the floor, and pulled it on. Unhurried, like she had all the time in the world. She got to her feet. I asked him to bring you here, she said. I looked at Andrew. Why? He found his voice fast. She doesn't know anything. Don't listen to her. I know enough, she said, without even glancing at him. Andrew tried once more. Heather, just let me. No, I said. It was the first full word I'd managed since I opened that door, and it came out steadier than I felt. "Your husband told me you were dead," she said again, slower this time, like she wanted it to actually land. "Why would you say that?" I said. "Why would he tell you that?" Andrew stepped between us. "Can we not do this right now, please?" She talked right over him. "We're doing this right now. You started this the day you told me she was gone." His jaw tightened. Nothing came out of it. He tried again. "Louise, come on." 2 years, she said. Still to me, not to him. "That's how long ago he told me you died." I felt my own pulse in my ears. 2 years? We've been married 6. She looked at him for the first time since I'd walked in. 2 years? And you're still married to her? Andrew didn't answer that. The silence did the math for all 3 of us. "That's not," Andrew started. "Don't," she said, not even turning her head toward him. "You don't get to talk right now." He stopped, like she'd put a hand on his chest. I had walked into that room to catch my husband cheating. Instead, I was standing in the doorway of a stranger's hotel room, watching his mistress run the entire conversation like she owned it. Nobody in that room was performing anymore. Not him, not her, not me. And some part of me understood, before either of them said another word, that she was not finished. She didn't say anything else. She just held her phone out, screen toward me. A photo gallery. 20, maybe 30 pictures. A woman at a lake house. A woman in a red dress at what looked like a wedding. "He told me these were of his wife," Louise said. "His late wife." I looked closer. I recognized my own lake house, my own red dress, my own sister's wedding 3 years ago, where I caught the bouquet. One caption under a beach photo read, "The last summer with her." Another was a screenshot of a text thread, my number saved under a different name, the last message dated 2 years back and never answered. Every photo in that gallery was of me, not a woman who looked like me. Me. My hands, my kitchen, my own laugh caught mid-frame in a photo I didn't remember him taking. I looked up from the phone at her face, and for the first time, I saw something under the composure. Her hand wasn't quite steady anymore. "I've had these for a year," she said. "I used to look at them and feel sorry for him, losing you so young. I used to tell my sister about you," she said. "The dead wife. I used your life as a bedtime story, and I didn't even know it. My sister thought it was romantic," she said. "A widower who still kept photos of his late wife on his phone. She used to tell me I was lucky to find a man who grieved that well." She wasn't gloating. She looked like she'd just found out the floor under her was fake too. While we were both still staring at that phone, Andrew grabbed his keys off the nightstand and headed for the door. "I'll let you two sort this out," he said, like it was ours to sort. Like the 2 women he'd both lied to could just work it out between themselves while he drove home. Louise got there first. She put her hand flat on the door before he could open it. "You don't get to leave that easily," she said. He made it as far as the parking lot before we caught up to him. 2 of us, 1 of him, his car door standing open like an exit he wasn't getting to use yet. "Andrew," Louise said, "tell her what you told me." He looked at his keys instead of either of our faces. A couple came out of the lobby doors behind us, saw the 3 of us standing there, and quietly changed direction toward a different row of cars. "There's nothing to tell," he tried. "It's not what either of you think." "It's exactly what we think," I said. "We just don't agree yet on how bad it actually is." "You told her I was dead," I said. "When?" He didn't answer fast enough, so Louise answered for him. 2 years ago. He said you died in a car accident. He said that was why he moved across town." "We've been married 6 years," I said. "I have never once lived anywhere but our own house." "He cried, telling me about it," Louise said, almost to herself. "Actual tears. I held him while he cried about killing you in a car accident that never happened." "Was there even a funeral?" I asked her. "In the story he told you, did I get a funeral?" She nodded slowly. "Small one. Close family only. He said it was too hard to have a lot of people there." Andrew looked at the asphalt like it might open up and take him. "He told me about your anniversary dinner," Louise said, slower now, working it out loud. 6 weeks ago. He described the restaurant, the waiter, what you ordered. I felt something cold move through me. We had dinner 6 weeks ago. It was a Tuesday. Nothing happened." Louise turned and looked at him properly for the first time since we'd walked outside. "You've been describing things that happened to a woman you told me was already gone." "Which is it?" she said. 2 years dead, or alive enough to have dinner with you 6 weeks ago?" "You told me about her laugh," Louise said, still to him. "You said you missed her laugh most of all. You told me that in bed 3 weeks ago." I put a hand on the hood of his car to steady myself. That detail landed harder than any of the others. He didn't answer. The math wasn't going to get easier for him, no matter how long he stood there. Andrew's hand tightened on his keys. It's complicated." "Uncomplicated," Louise said. "Right now, in this parking lot. I'm not moving." He looked at the two of us blocking his car, and for the first time since I'd opened that door, he looked scared instead of sorry. Somewhere behind us, a car alarm chirped off. None of the three of us so much as flinched at it. Louise crossed her arms and leaned back against his own headlight, settling in like she had nowhere else to be tonight. "Fine," he said. "You want to know why I said it? Fine." He leaned back against his own car. "You want the truth? Fine." I used details from my real marriage because they were the easiest lies to tell. I didn't have to make anything up. Louise's face went through something ugly and fast. "So none of it was even yours? You just copied it onto me." "It was easier," he said, like that answered anything. "You didn't fall for me," Louise said, working through it out loud. "You fell for a version of a marriage that already worked. You just needed a new woman to hand it to." Andrew didn't argue with that either. That, more than anything, told her she'd gotten it right. "The story about how we met," she said, "was any of that even real?" "That part was real," he said, too quickly, like it mattered to him that she believe at least that much. "Everything after it wasn't," she said. It wasn't a question, either. "For what it's worth," Louise said, "tonight wasn't an accident." She walked to her own car and came back with a folder already in her hand. "I've been suspicious for 3 weeks. Long enough to start checking things myself instead of asking you. A dead woman doesn't have a dentist who still sends reminder texts to a phone he forgot to cancel," she said. "That's how it started. A text with your name on it, 4 months after you were supposed to be gone. I called this hotel. I picked the room. I made sure she'd be standing in that doorway tonight, not some other night when I wasn't ready. I wasn't going to confront him alone, she said. Not when I finally had a way to get you here, too. You could have just called me, I said. Told me over the phone. You didn't have to set up a whole hotel room for it. Would you have believed a stranger who called and said your husband told her you were dead? She said. I needed you standing in this room, looking at him when it landed. She wasn't wrong. I probably would have hung up on her. She opened the folder on the hood of his car and turned her phone's flashlight on it. A lease. A one-bedroom apartment across town. Signed 4 months ago. His name only. Under that, a bank statement. An account I had never seen. In his name, with a balance that made my stomach drop. Behind the statement, a printed floor plan for the apartment, a highlighter mark circling the move-in date. The move-in date was 11 days away. Andrew reached for the folder. She moved it out of his reach without even looking at him. I picked up the bank statement myself. $14,000. Moved out in 6 deposits over 4 months. That came out of our joint account, I said. Our house payment was late in March. I thought we were just tight that month. You weren't tight, Louise said before he could answer. You were being robbed. Andrew opened his mouth. Nothing useful came out of it. Where does $14,000 even go? I said. When you're supposedly a grieving widower with no wife to spend it on. The deposit, Louise said, tapping the lease. The furniture. The first 6 months of rent, paid up front, so nobody would ask him for pay stubs from a dead man's job. 11 days, I said, looking at the highlighted date. You were moving her in 11 days from tonight. Andrew didn't deny the number. He just looked at it like it belonged to somebody else's life. This isn't a fling anymore, I told him. This is a plan, and I want to know how long you've been running it. He looked down at the folder, then at both of us, and for the first time all night, he didn't have a line ready. Neither of us moved to fill the silence for him this time. A minivan pulled into the row behind us, headlights sweeping across all 3 of us before it parked, and nobody moved for that either. Longer than you want to hear, he finally said. I've been trying to leave for over a year, he said. I just couldn't make myself file. So instead of a lawyer, you invented a dead wife, Louise said. Flat, not a question. It was supposed to be easier this way. Grieve me for a while, meet someone, start over. Nobody signs anything, nobody gets hurt. You wanted a clean exit, Louise said, so you built one out of 2 women who didn't know they were both standing in it. I got hurt, I said. I'm standing right here. So did I, Louise said. I just didn't know it yet, until about 20 minutes ago. What was the plan? I asked him, once she moved in. Was I supposed to stay dead forever, or did you have an end date for that too? He didn't answer right away. I hadn't figured that part out, he finally admitted. Of course you hadn't, Louise said. You never figure out the part where somebody else gets hurt. I thought about the 6 years, every dinner I saved for him, every trip I moved for his job, every night I told myself he was just tired. You didn't just lie to her, I said. You spent a year deciding I was already gone, and you let me keep setting a place for you at the table. I refilled your coffee 3 nights ago, I said, while you were already planning which of my stories you'd tell her next. I never stopped loving you, he said, more level than anything else he'd said all night. Not as an excuse, just as a fact he seemed to need to say out loud. That's almost worse, I told him. At least a man who stopped loving me makes sense. Andrew looked at the ground. For once, he didn't try to explain it away. I didn't cry. I didn't yell either. We're done, I said. Not tomorrow, not after a conversation with a counselor. Right now, in this parking lot. He reached for my arm. I stepped back before he could touch it. Don't, I said. You buried that version of me 2 years ago. Let her stay buried. Louise picked up her folder off the hood and looked at both of us. For what it's worth, I'm not staying either. Not with him, and not for this conversation. She got in her own car and left the two of us standing there, which felt, somehow, like exactly the right amount of justice. I didn't go back to the hotel room. I went home and started packing before he even got there. He got back 40 minutes after me and found me zipping a bag in the bedroom. Can we just talk about this? He said. Please, before you do anything you can't undo. You did the undoable part 2 years ago, I said. I'm just catching up. He stood in that doorway for a full minute before he said anything else, like he thought silence might work where words hadn't. Where's Louise? I asked, not looking up from the suitcase. Gone, he said. She wouldn't even let me drive her home. He followed me from room to room, listing reasons. The mortgage, the dog, 10 years of knowing each other before we even got married. None of that matters if half of it was already fake, I told him, not stopping. I took my clothes, my laptop, and the framed photo of my own parents off the dresser. I left the ring on the nightstand. That's it? He said, watching me carry one bag to the door. 6 years, and that's all you're taking? I don't want anything that came from a marriage you'd already decided was over, I said. Not even the good years, especially not those. He didn't follow that logic, and I didn't stay to explain it to him a second time. At the front door, he tried one more time. Where will you even go? That's not something I owe you an answer to anymore, I said, and I meant every word of it. He didn't follow me outside. I got in my car, backed out of the driveway I'd pulled into 1,000 times, and didn't look at the house once in the mirror. 6 years fit into one bag on the passenger seat. 2 years, apparently, was how long I'd already been a widow, he made up. I drove until the streetlights turned into 2-lane highway, and I still hadn't decided where I was headed. I stopped once at a gas station 3 hours out and pulled up a map on my phone with no destination typed into it yet. I picked the third town my finger landed on, mostly because I'd never heard of it before that night. I didn't know yet where I was going. I only knew I wasn't coming back to that driveway. I picked a town 2 states away where nobody knew Andrew's name, let alone mine. I found a room to rent above a hardware store and a job pouring coffee at a diner on Main Street. Nobody there asked why I'd moved. Nobody there needed to know. I filed the divorce paperwork from a library computer 2 towns over and never once looked at his name on the form. For the first time in 6 years, nobody expected anything from me at all. I bought a second-hand bike so I could stop asking the diner owner for rides and rode it to work every morning, past a hardware store, a church, and a feed store I hadn't been inside yet. A man started coming in most mornings. Same stool, same order, same folded newspaper he never seemed to actually read. He didn't ask my name the first week. He just said, "Thank you," every single time I filled his cup. The third week, I finally asked him. "Dale," he said. "Dale Woodard. I run the feed store 2 doors down." He didn't ask mine back right away, which I liked more than I expected to. When he finally did, 3 days later, I told him just my first name and nothing else. He didn't push for more. "Heather," he repeated back, like he was setting it somewhere safe. He never once shortened it to something else. Weeks went by like that. Coffee, a few words about the weather. Nothing that asked anything of me. One morning, I finally told him I was recently divorced, bracing for the questions. He just nodded. "Cream's on the counter if you want it today," he said, and let it go. That was the whole conversation. It was the first time in months somebody hadn't needed a reason out of me. Another morning, he mentioned once, without asking about mine, that his own marriage had ended badly 10 years back, and he still lived like a man who'd learned not to pry. I didn't ask him to say more. He didn't offer it. We understood each other in the spaces where neither of us pushed. Some mornings, we didn't talk at all beyond the order, and those mornings felt just as good as the ones where we did. My car wouldn't start outside the diner one night in October. Dale was still there, closing up the feed store. He didn't offer to drive me anywhere. He just popped the hood and asked me to hold the flashlight steady. We stood there 20 minutes while he found a loose battery cable, not saying much of anything. When it finally turned over, he wiped his hands on a rag and said, "There you go," like it was nothing, and got back in his own truck. It was the first time in a year I'd felt useful to somebody instead of managed by them. He didn't ask for my number that night either, even though he'd earned the right to. I drove home slower than I needed to that night, in no hurry to end the day. It was 3 more weeks before he finally asked me to dinner, and even then, he made it sound like an errand. "I'm eating at the grill on 5th tonight, if you want company." Andrew found me in April. I don't know how. I didn't ask. He stood at the bottom of my porch steps, like he wasn't sure he was allowed up them. "Louise never spoke to me again after that parking lot," he said. I don't blame her. It just took me until now to understand what I actually lost. "How did you even find this town?" I asked him. "It took a while," he said, like that was supposed to prove something. "I'm not asking because I'm flattered," I said. "I'm asking because I moved here specifically so nobody could find me." He had the decency to look uncomfortable about that. "You want another chance," I said. It wasn't a question. I let him finish. All of it. The apology, the excuses dressed up as regret, the part where he said he'd changed. He said he thought about the hotel room every day. He said he wished he'd just filed for divorce, like a normal, cowardly man. He asked if there was somebody else. I told him that wasn't the question he actually wanted answered. Then I said the thing I'd been carrying around since that parking lot. "You didn't lose me that night. You lost me long before I knew your name was being used to bury me." He didn't have an answer for that one either. I didn't invite him in. I didn't walk him back to his car either. "You should go," I said. "I hope she's the one who finally gets an honest version of you. I'm not waiting around to find out." "It's not her," he said. "There's nobody else. I just wanted you to know that." "I don't need it to be nobody else," I said. "I just need it to not be my problem anymore." "So that's it," he said. 6 years, and I get a closed door. 6 years, and I got a dead woman's obituary I never wrote, I said. I think the door's the kinder ending, honestly. He opened his mouth once more. I closed the door before he got the chance. I stood in the front hall for a minute, listening to his car finally pull away down the street. That was the last time I ever spoke to Andrew Lawson. Louise called me a few weeks later. I almost didn't pick up. "I wanted to tell you I'm sorry," she said. "Not for anything I did to you, for not seeing it sooner." "You confronted him with the proof in your hand," I said. "You did more than I would have managed on my own that night." "There's no rivalry here," I told her. "We were both handed the same lie. He just gave us different rooms to believe it in." She told me she'd moved apartments, cut the lease on the place he'd been paying for, and started seeing a therapist who specialized in exactly this: men who rewrite the people around them. "Turns out there's a whole waiting list," she said. "We're apparently not as rare as I'd like to think." She laughed, short and surprised, like she hadn't expected to laugh about any of this today. "Do you ever hear from him?" I asked her. "Once," she said. "A birthday text." I didn't answer it either. "For what it's worth," she said, "I'm glad I met you." "So am I," said. And I meant it. We talked for another 20 minutes after that, about nothing important. The way you talk to somebody who already knows the worst thing about you. Months later, Dale and I sat on that same porch at sunset. The two of us. Nothing performed about it. He'd started calling it our porch a few weeks back, and I'd stopped correcting him. The feed store had a new manager now. Dale had sold his half of it that spring and started fixing up old trucks out of the garage instead, which suited him better than anyone had expected, including him. "You ever think about going back?" he asked. Not fishing, just asking. I looked at the porch light, the quiet street, the life I'd built with my own 2 hands, out of nothing. "No," I said. "I think I spent enough years living in a life someone else had already written for me." He didn't say anything else. He just reached over and took my hand, and neither of us needed to say anything more. Stories like this one leave a few quiet things behind. That a person too afraid to end something honestly will usually invent something crueler instead. That the woman he lied to and the woman he betrayed can end up on the same side once the lying finally stops. That starting over doesn't require an explanation to anyone, least of all the person who made it necessary. And that real love, the kind that lasts, rarely announces itself. It just shows up quietly the next morning and keeps showing up. Would you have wanted the truth, even knowing what it would cost you? If you enjoyed this story, hit like and subscribe, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments.